Makes a really good point. It was a good show. All right, President Trump facing an uphill battle, but vowing to keep up the fight. The president's attorneys moving forward with legal challenges to the 2020 presidential election. President promising big cases showing unconstitutionality. Joining us now is Jordan Sekulow, the executive director of the American Center for Law and Justice, also a member of the president's legal team. Perfect person to talk to. Jordan, thanks for coming on. Where does it all stand this morning?
So this is a big week. We've got already a stay at the U.S. Supreme Court in Pennsylvania on all the ballots that came in late, that were postmarked after Election Day. They got there late. So we've got to stay out of the Supreme Court on that. That has been referred to the full court. And I think what the Supreme Court's looking at is whether or not there will be enough cases put together that could make their way to the Supreme Court where it would be outcome determinative. That's the key this week, is getting in enough cases at the federal and state level, which ultimately would be outcome determinative. What does that mean? Enough votes would change, illegal votes would be thrown out, that the president would win. Just filed again over last night was in Pennsylvania, an amended complaint by the Trump campaign, and this calls on the Secretary of State to halt any certification, but it also goes to the heart of an equal protection constitutional claim, which is that in some counties, you were actually called if you submitted a ballot and did something wrong, and you were allowed to correct the ballot. And that happened in Democrat counties. And in Republican counties, they followed the normal procedure, which is they don't call people back to correct a bad ballot. They just toss that ballot out. So there's equal protection claims there. Also one arising in Georgia relating to the signature verification difference between mail-in ballots and in-person voting.
Yeah, I mean, it's tight in some of these states. You know, Georgia's really close. I think 14,000. Arizona's like 10,000. But when you look at states like Pennsylvania that you're going to need, do you see enough? Because I think a lot of people are saying there's not going to be enough to flip Pennsylvania back to Trump, because it's like 60,000 votes.
Well, if you look at it this way, so we've already had a Secretary of State there that was told you did the wrong thing. With this 2-day change to voting to allow the correction. So we've got that. We've got the stay at the Supreme Court on the ballots that came in. So I think you start combining that together, and you look at also the entirety of the process, as we have argued, was failed. And I will tell you that you could start thinking about what that term may mean when we talk about failed elections inside states. The Constitution and federal law has a procedure to fix failed elections.
Yeah, and real quick, finally, we talked last week that a member of the campaign was on, I think it was Jenna Ellis. She said that they really need an audit of this system, this Dominion voting system. Is there any update on that?
Well, Sidney Powell is a great attorney. You know, she's done excellent work for Mike Flynn when she came on the case, and she's well known in the conservative world, and now she's on the team as well. That is really going to be one of her focuses. We've heard so much about it. Now is the week to put up or shut up for us on getting the information about Dominion, which voting systems, which is in 37 states, including all the states that are outcome determinative. I'll use that again in this election.
37 states. Okay, so you say this is a week when we can expect to get some information on Dominion.
Got to get the cases filed this week if you're going to get them to the Supreme Court in time.
Okay. Jordan.
For President-elect Joe Biden, the transition to the White House is moving forward.
But for President Donald Trump, the legal challenges to the election results continue. Despite growing uncertainty, they can overturn the results of the election. Joining us right now by phone is President Trump's personal attorney, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who happens to be in D.C., just seeing the President of the United States. Mayor Giuliani, tell us about what kind of mood is the President in? Because I know you see him at least once a day.
No, the President is in a very good mood. He's not the kind of person that gets himself thrown off by anything. Every day he was president, he was attacked viciously. So he had to handle it. He learned how to handle 2 phony impeachments, and so he's a very balanced guy, and he stays on target, and he's running the country as he should be, and at the same time he's paying attention to the lawyers who are involved in different lawsuits. And the shame of it is that people are saying, oh, these lawsuits don't show anything. They haven't gone to court yet. They're just allegations at this point.
So
if the allegations were true, if the allegations of the lawsuit were true, he'd be president now.
All right, so give us some specifics. What
Sure,
have you got? You've gotten
think.
affidavits. Like what kind of evidence is there?
How about 500? It doesn't get covered by the main media. Let me tell you about Detroit.
Okay.
In Detroit, we have 40 affidavits, including from Democrats, who say that the center at the Cobo Arena Hall was a disaster. Basically, no Republican was allowed to oversee any counting. So we have no idea if the mail-in ballots are legitimate or illegitimate. The law requires that you have a Republican overseer as well as a Democrat. Both of them get a chance to see the ballot. It's the only way you can tell if a mail-in ballot is legal. And the law required it because this is a very strange thing to do. And they completely threw the Republicans out. We have 29 affidavits from the 29 people who were thrown out. The person who was in charge is a lawyer, very distinguished lawyer. Nobody's lying. They're all telling the truth. We even have pictures of them. That alone would disqualify about 300,000 to 400,000 votes in the state of Michigan. We also have evidence from two people under oath that at 4 o'clock in the morning, 100,000 ballots arrived, completely unexpected, from cars with out of state licenses, and they were counted, and they were all for Biden. Now, how do you not present that to a court? That's the evidence that we have. I'm not making that up. That's evidence that we have. In Pennsylvania, it's very, very simple. In Philadelphia, Republicans were excluded from watching the count of about 300,000 ballots. Those ballots could have Joe Schmedl's name on it, as far as I know.
So
They could be phony ballots. They could be ballots from all the same person. The reason you have a review process is to avoid that. According to the law in Pennsylvania and in Michigan, a ballot like that is null and void. It's an invalid ballot. Also, in Michigan, it's a felony to
Mayor,
do that.
So, Mayor, I know, listen, you have to work hard for your client. We understand that.
No, I don't.
No.
I don't have to. Yes, I have to work hard for all clients. I just told you what the lawsuit said.
Okay, can I ask? So, also with Homeland Security, they have said that this was the most secure American election in history. There are some courts that have tossed the cases saying it was hearsay. A postal worker in Pennsylvania also said that he was recanting what he said. So I know you've had some victories,
Okay,
but my question to you, sir. Okay, go ahead.
Because it's misleading.
Okay.
First of all, the postal worker in Pennsylvania who recanted actually recorded the 2-hour, I would say, browbeating session he had with a postal inspector who threatened him. And that's been put out, but not reported by the mainstream media. And he has said that his recantation was done only because he was threatened by a postal inspector, and it's tape recorded. That's number one. Nobody's thrown out any case based on hearsay. We haven't presented the case yet based on fraud. We've won some process victories, and we've lost some process victories, meaning how many days do we have to do this and how many days. No court has yet ruled on the things I just said to you. There also happen to be similar allegations like that in Georgia, in Nevada, and in Phoenix, Arizona, that are probably going to be brought in lawsuits or other kinds of proceedings. Now, the president has a right to pursue these things. He's not making them up. They come from people. If the press, which is dead set against him, and has basically set up a censorship of reporting this information, just like it did with the hard drive, the press would report the truth to the American people. There's a valid concern about the integrity of this election. And when the intelligence services say it was secure, they're not talking about fraud. They're talking about foreign governments interfering with the election. We're not alleging that a foreign government interfered. The intelligence services wouldn't know if Republicans weren't allowed to see ballots. That's not what they're talking about.
So let me...
To plate the two things is to mislead the public.
Okay, let me ask you this, because the public would like to see the president. The only time we saw him was laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown. Other than that, we've seen his tweets, of course, talking about various cable ratings and the election. But for whatever amount of time he has, 60 plus days or 4 years, the American people need to see him.
Well, the American people didn't see Barack Obama once for about 3 weeks, and they didn't have a press conference for 13 months. I mean, the president has kind of created the problem for himself by being available every single day, sometimes 2 press conferences a day. Honestly, I don't know the reason why he is. That's not something I asked him about. And until he said it to me, I wasn't even aware that he wasn't doing his normal thing.
Will you talk to him? I'm just curious. Lots of people talking about the transition of power. And
I have not talked to him about that.
Will you talk to him about maybe giving Joe Biden some of the information? Oops.
That's your answer.
I don't know if that was intentional or not, but we have been having problems with
timing is everything.
Rudy Giuliani's telephone interview all morning.
Okay, well, we appreciate former mayor.
Government watchdog group Judicial Watch reports the number of voter registrations in several counties in some swing states exceeds 100% of the eligible voters in those counties. One America's John Hines has more from Washington.
What seems to be going on with these ghost voters that Judicial Watch has discovered, sir?
So we looked at 37 states, and we found that 29 of those 37 had counties with 100% higher voter registrations than citizen voting age population. And so of that, we totaled 353 counties in those 29 states exceeded 100% voter registration.
Is it fair to say, Mr. Noble, that you feel that dead people should not be voting? Is that
well, even more precisely, they shouldn't be on the registration list too. Yes, they shouldn't even have the chance to get a ballot, to be honest with you. And
they should be disenfranchised, in other words.
Yes, we definitely want to limit the voting of the registration of the deceased, and of course, people that no longer live in the state. We've gotten reports from people that have moved to Washington, D.C. and other states that are still getting vote by mail ballots from California, and that's sort of the new universe we're living with now post-COVID. Is there's been a big push to rewrite all the election law.
What potentially impact would this have, say, in a presidential election, do you suppose?
Well, I mean, it certainly gives you a universe of votes that you need to look at and realize, did these people vote? I mean, it's sort of a litmus test to sort of do a sample of voting or voters to look at. Did this person that's on the Social Security Death Index, did he or she receive a ballot? There are 2 sources of the data that we often look at, and that's the National Change of Address database that the Postal Service compiles and the Social Security Death Index. And that'll tell you largely on a rolling basis who's passed away. And so that will give the litigators that are bringing these cases on behalf of the campaign, a universe of voters to look at and say, objectively, did this person receive a ballot? If so, how did it get cast, or who cast it, and did it get returned, and did it get counted? Of course, unfortunately, once it gets counted, it's in the universe of votes, and so you can't really pull it out. And so that's sort of one thing they would be looking at.
And Judicial Watch found that there were approximately how many ghost voters in the country after running in 29 states?
If you look at the 353 counties that we identified with 100% plus registration, we found 1.8 million adding all those up together.
Since you have found, Judicial Watch has found some 1.8 million ghost voters in 29 states, what sort of problems could those pose in a presidential election? And is the president perhaps within his rights, or on this basis, well advised to be questioning the results in some of these swing states, do you suppose?
Yeah, I mean, first, with respect to the president's rights, I mean, the Constitution contemplates this, federal law contemplates this. Everyone would like to not have election issues, but I mean, the president's perfectly within his right. And honestly, it's a public service to get to the bottom of this, because if Biden's a winner, and he seems to be well ahead in the popular vote, if he is indeed declared the winner, the people need to know that he had a legitimate election. But if not, we need to find out, and we need to make sure this doesn't happen again, too. That's the bigger problem, is is this going to happen every 2 years or 4 years? With respect to what is sort of the practical problem of having so many voters on the list, it's sort of, for lack of a better phrase, it's the ammunition you need to conduct an illicit voting operation. I'm not saying I've confirmed that that's happened, but unless someone's registered, it's hard for them to get a vote. Now, I mean, there's other, I guess, schemes that have been alleged that I haven't really tracked down, but you can't request an absentee if you're not registered. You can't request an absentee for somebody that you're going to vote for them unless they're registered.
Russell Nobile, who is a trial attorney with Judicial Watch, thank you.
Bombshell. The 2020 election took place under a Trump-declared national emergency that set an election day trap for the unauthorized access of election and campaign infrastructure. We have another major bombshell for you regarding the 2020 election. Despite the intense malicious censorship of big tech, we're really becoming known for in-depth analysis and research of current events. So thank you for your support as we continue to fight for the very survival of America, our constitutional republic. This story begins with the little-known executive order signed into existence on September 12, 2018 by President Donald J. Trump. That order, available at whitehouse.gov, is entitled Executive Order on Impose Certain Sanctions in the Event of Foreign Interference in the United States Election. In that executive order, which almost no one has covered since the day it was signed, President Trump declares a national emergency. That emergency is still in play to this day, and the 2020 election was conducted under this state of emergency, which is a crucial point to understand what's coming next. Unauthorized access of election infrastructure. In the EO, the president also states that people and organizations located in part outside the United States are known to be able to interfere in or undermine public confidence in United States elections, including through the unauthorized access of election and campaign infrastructure or the covert distribution of propaganda and disinformation. If you're starting to see how this ties into CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and MSNBC, you're not alone. All those organizations, as you'll soon see, have been caught under this emergency declaration of foreign interference in United States elections, aided by complicit corporations on United States soil. The EO further states that this foreign interference in United States elections constitutes an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States. Why is this relevant to anything we're seeing right now with the massive election fraud carried out by the Democrats and the deep state? Because Dominion Voting Systems is a Canadian company and SkyTel is run out of Spain. That's right, Dominion is a foreign-owned company which makes Dominion-based election theft a foreign interference issue. SkyTel, by the way, is connected to George Soros and the Democrats, and according to TGP, see below, Bill Gates also owns stock in SkyTel. Dominion is Canadian, SkyTel is from Spain. Both represent foreign interference in United States elections with the data routed through servers in Germany. Another voting machine company called SkyTel, also widely used in the United States elections, is located in Spain, as Great Game India reports. days after it was revealed how 2020 United States elections were rigged by Canadian Crown agent Dominion voting systems through a so-called glitch. Now, Great Game India has found involvement of another dubious foreign company in United States election meddling. The votes cast by Americans were counted by a bankrupt Spanish company, SkyTel, in Spain. Like Dominion voting systems, SkyTel has a long history of election fraud in various nations, including injecting backdoors in its election software. This issue has prompted experts to question why the sensitive job of counting votes was outsourced to a foreign company. How could a bankrupt Spanish company count American votes in Spain due to such widespread fraud? The chairman of the United States Federal Election Commission, Trey Traynor, believes that the 2020 United States president election is illegitimate. What people are missing in all this is that Trump's 2018 executive order gives the DOJ the power to seize all assets of individuals and companies that were complicit in aiding or covering up this foreign interference in United States elections. The National Emergency Order specifically calls for seizure of all assets and entities that have directly or indirectly engaged in, sponsored, concealed, or otherwise been complicit in foreign interference in a United States election. That would, of course, have to include particularly every CNN fake news anchor, every big tech CEO, every fake news journal terrorist from NBC News, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. They are all complicit in gaslighting America and covering up the massive foreign election interference that just took place. Trump's EO further explains that asset seizures shall target people and entities which have materially assisted, sponsored, or provided financial, material, or technical support for or goods or services to or in support of any activity described in subsection AI of this section, or any person whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this order, or to be owned or controlled by, or to have acted or purported to act for or on behalf of, directly or indirectly, any person whose property or interests in property are blocked pursuant to this order. In other words, the EO covers every person who has been corrupted or compromised by Communist China, and that includes at least 80% of Democratic lawmakers by, or our estimate includes Senators Feinstein and Schiff. Every organization involved in the election between the cover-up can now be seized by the United States government, but that's not even the full extent of what's demanded by this executive order. In Section 8, the order explains that the term person also means a partnership, association, trust, joint venture, corporation, group, subgroup, or other organizations. In other words, any media organization that assisted in covering up or assisted foreign interference in a United States election is specifically targeted by this executive order. Further, in the definition section, the EO explains the term election infrastructure means information and communication technology and systems used by or on behalf of the federal government or a state or local government in managing the election process, including voter registration database, voting machines, voting tabulation equipment, and equipment for the secure transmission of election results.
tracks today.
I didn't say Simon Says. I didn't say Simon Says.
Purchase your tracks today.
I didn't say Simon Says. I didn't say Simon Says.
Purchase your tracks today.